Hi, this is Joe Welinske, and I'm the program manager for the ConveyUX conference coming up in Seattle in January. And I'm having the fortunate time to be able to speak to many of the presenters who will be at the conference, and I'm talking right now with Dan Saffer. Hello, Dan.
Hi, Joe.
Where are you talking to us from?
I'm here in beautiful San Francisco, right down the coast from lovely Seattle.
Well, why don't you start out by telling us a little bit about the things that you're involved in? You're obviously written a lot of books. One of the most recent ones that I've enjoyed is Micro Interactions. But what's kind of a day in the life for you? What type of activities are you involved with for your organization?
Sure. So, day in the life for me, yeah. So I'm a creative director. So my role involves not only kind of leading and managing a group of very creative designers, but also working very hands-on on projects. And those projects lately for me are everything from mobile and web apps to robots to car interiors to consumer electronics. So I'm really fortunate that I've had a. I,
It looks like your video froze up for a moment.
oh, boo.
That's all right. It
Uh,
was only about 10 seconds worth.
you want to restart?
No, just keep going.
Keep going. Yeah. Oh, so yes. Well, I don't know what you missed, but yeah, I'm super fortunate that I get to work with a whole bunch of different really cool projects. Everything from robots to car interiors to consumer electronics to uh, web apps and mobile apps. All these really cool things that are all happening, kind of swirling around here in San Francisco right now. So it's just a great time to be a designer, particularly in the fields that we're all working in, because there's just so much going on, so much new technologies and new business models and new ways of um, approaching the work and the work, even stuff that was traditionally kind of thought of as being kind of like dull and kind of grunt work is now becoming like interesting and sexy and exciting again. So I think it's a great time to be doing what we're doing.
Well, you just mentioned a lot of different areas where you saw new things, technologies, processes, old being new. So what are some of the things specifically that you've run into that you're particularly engaged in?
So I mean, right now, like every, it seems like once a week I hear about some new prototyping tool. So just a really exciting thing that I think is just really changed what we do over the last 3 years. It's just the quality of the tools that we're getting to work with are just incredible. Just the stuff that you can now do without ever touching code, or if you're a code thinker, like you can get into code and really do a lot. But the level and quality of the tools, everything from making kind of these really fast, really easy prototypes for mobile or web, to things that are almost exactly like you'd want them to be, that are really super super detailed down to really detailed animation and stuff, is just incredible. So that's something that I think is happening in our industry. Like every week it feels like something new is coming out, and so that's really exciting. And then just the different kind of challenges that I think that we're going after. I mean, here in San Francisco, we're kind of uh, doing a lot of Internet of Things stuff is kind of bubbling under the surface. So not only do you have like the really strong web and mobile apps happening here, but you also start to get this kind of layer of really interesting hardware stuff that's happening across all three of those. Is kind of just another blend in. So those things are just really fascinating and really incredible to start dealing with as a designer.
Well, just following up on the Internet of Things and just your your experience in the area of working with physical in addition to digital. Are there any particular challenges that you've run into related to that? New ways of thinking about what it means
Mhm.
to be a designer as opposed to, maybe we're all we all have a lot more familiarity and foundation in terms of software design.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some kind of there's definitely thinking about things that you don't have to deal with as much with software, although even that's probably arguable. But things, thinking about things like ergonomics and stuff like that, and I've done stuff. I've done some devices for people who are elderly, and so thinking about their context of use, because the thing about hardware is that it lives in a three-dimensional space. I mean, that's kind of that's an obvious thing about hardware, but it actually is profound when you think about the different kinds of locations it can be in and what can happen to it. Can it be dropped? If it's something that's worn, where is it going to be worn? Can it be worn in the shower? Is this material gonna rub people the wrong way? Is that button too small? There's a million little things around hardware that are just I mean, just and fixing mistakes is like, oh my goodness. Once you have to start retooling or anything, or going back, God forbid, is that the factory being made or any of those kinds of things, then it's so much more difficult. Um, and but it's great to be able to think across across software and hardware, so that you can think about, wow, should this button be on the app, or should it be a button that's a physical button on the hardware? Like, how often is it used? Could the button on the hardware be used for something different? So those kinds of challenges are really fascinating. Kind of that back and forth, kind of um, where do you push a piece of functionality, or does it live on hardware and software, or both? So a couple years ago, I coined the term, like, fee. Like, where does this piece of functionality live? Is it on an app? Is it on the device? Is it on the web? Like, where does it exist? And then how does it instantiate? Is it a button? Is it a link? Is it a dial? Is it a knob? All those kinds of things.
Well, you have a couple of topics that you're going to be presenting at the conference in January. One of those is related to your book on micro interactions.
Mhm.
So, maybe for people that aren't familiar with that term, what are you talking about there?
Sure. So with micro interactions, and it relates pretty heavily to Internet of Things because they work really well on very small devices. So micro interactions are about uh, the smallest pieces of functionality, and sometimes these are things that we don't even think about. Things like search or login or the on-off button or turning the ringer off on your phone. These are all like little things that we sometimes think of as like product hygiene. But my thesis is that the products that we love the most are the ones where these little micro interactions, where the detail has been paid attention to. Where the designer has really taken the time to really polish these little details. And it's all these little small things that can really make a kind of mediocre product, or just one that's just okay, into something that's really great. That's something that people love to use, that people want to use, that people get excited about using, um, and become things. And if you do these micro interactions really well, they become part of the product, part of the brand. So I talk about the Facebook like button being a really great example of this. So if you if Facebook came out with a product that didn't have the like button on it, you'd be like, where's the like? I like, it's part of their brand. It's a signature moment for them. So for me, like, when I started looking around, I'm like, wow, there's not really any great great book or great talk about how do you like really start to think about and design these little details that can really make a difference. So I came up with this model, this micro interactions model for really how do you start to focus on designing these particular details, and it's a really straightforward kind of step by step way of thinking about interactive details that I think um, have really resonated with people, and people have said, "Wow, uh, I've been thinking about this and working on these kinds of things for years, and I didn't know how to formally talk about them or think about them, and now I just have this language to do it." And I I think it's great that people are starting to really focus on these details. For so long, the design industry has been all about focusing on really big problems and really big issues and really uh, system level problems. But it's nice to be able to not only be able to work at that level, but also to dive in deep and really dig into these details, because that's what I think the interplay between those two things is where experience design is really made, from the kind of the top strategic level all the way down to these little tiny details. And that's what the micro interactions are.
I enjoyed the book. I got a lot out of it. It
Oh,
was
thank you.
gave me some new things to think about. And you'll be at the conference. You'll be able to sign books for people that have their own copy of that. Your other presentation is maybe a little bit more on the thought leadership side, and that topic is practical creativity. Kind of what's the theme there?
The theme there was basically I got to the point where, and this is a brand new talk for me. I got to the point where I was feeling creatively drained, where I was feeling like, wow, I don't really have much to say. Like the stuff that I'm kind of doing at work is not really inspiring me. Like it's very hard. Like when people like would come to me for like creative ideas, I was having a hard time coming up with them. And I was like, wow, there has to be there has to be a way to start thinking about like how do I refill that creative tank? How do I start those juices flowing again, and start to be able to respond, create, to when it's necessary for my job to go fill up that bucket of of creative things, and apply it. Like how do I start to do that? How do I start to think about that? How do I create basically a creative practice for my life? And so I started thinking about that very deliberately. Like, what are some of the things that anyone could do that's going to start to enhance their practical creativity? When when something comes to you and says, "Hey, we have this problem," like, what are the resources that you can use inside yourself to kind of draw that out, and start to apply them to these new to these problems that are coming at you, that usually aren't things of your own creation, which is why I call it kind of practical creativity. It's stuff that's coming from the outside that you have to find a creative solution for. And as designers, we do this all the time. So I've come up with a number of different kind of practices that I think are really important for anyone working in the creative field to start to apply to their work, just so when those moments come, and they always do, of you needing to be creative, you've got this full tank of creativity fuel that you can then use whenever it's required. So that's what this talk is about.
All right. Well, thanks for giving a little preview of that. So, looking forward to having you here at our event in January.
Yeah, excited.
We're coming up just a little less than 2 months, and we'll see you in Seattle then.
Can't wait.
All right. Thanks a
Hopefully,
lot.
hopefully it won't be too rainy.
Yeah, I think we'll be good. Thanks, Dan.
All right, thanks.